Are coming after your state really quickly here, and as a response, coming after your state because the increased COVID numbers, hospitalizations, deaths are up in Texas, and there's a direct assault on your governor's policies and your state's policies. Very brief response.
Yeah. Well, Laura, the COVID is spreading, particularly most of the numbers are with the unvaccinated, and the Democrats like to blame Republicans on that. Well, the biggest group in most states are African Americans who have not been vaccinated. And the last time I checked, over 90% of them vote for Democrats in their major cities and major counties. So it's up to the Democrats to get, just as it's up to Republicans, to try to get as many people vaccinated. But we respect the fact that if people don't want the vaccination, we're not going to force it on them. That's their individual right. But in terms of criticizing the Republicans for this, we're encouraging people who want to take it, but they're doing nothing for the African American community that has a significant high number of unvaccinated
TikTok
people.
Videos.
So they need to address
that. We got a lot of TikTok.
Yes. This is Republican Dan Patrick, the Lieutenant Governor of Texas, making sure that everyone is well aware that it's not just Governor Abbott who's an abhorrent, racist piece of trash. Here, Patrick is pinning the blame on black people for low vaccination rates. Now, first of all, I get that Dan Patrick wants to make this about race, because what else would the Republican Party have if they couldn't vilify people of color? But in reality, the actual ethnic and political group with the single lowest vaccination rate in the entire country is white Republicans. In other words, Patrick, a Republican, is taking credit for white people having higher vaccination rates than black people, when in reality, it's the Democrats in that group that are propping up those numbers. The people who comprise Dan Patrick's base are less likely to be vaccinated than black Americans, and yet that hasn't stopped him from vilifying black people anyway. And according to polling data from the Kaiser Family Foundation, while black Americans make up about 13% of the unvaccinated population and 13% of the group that says it will never get a vaccine, Republicans make up more than half of the unvaccinated population and nearly 60% of those who say they'll never get a vaccine. So again, while Dan Patrick is out here throwing stones, he might want to clean up his own house first. Consider too, there are reasons that may account for the lower vaccination rates among black Americans, including not only historic trust issues between that community and government institutions, but access. This year, NPR mapped vaccine distribution sites, finding that more white neighborhoods often had better access than black neighborhoods. Those structural obstacles are bad enough, but for Dan Patrick to then exploit those for some low-rent partisan dig is just all the more shameful. He then goes on to claim that Republicans are doing everything they can to encourage people to get vaccinated, while Democrats are doing little to nothing to encourage black Americans to get vaccinated, which is a hell of a way to rewrite history. First of all, Democrats have been utterly relentless in pushing for vaccinations, and not just for Democrats either, for everyone. In fact, Biden himself has spent a disproportionate amount of time pushing for vaccinations in red states, including Mississippi, Tennessee, Florida, North Carolina, and Texas, none of which voted for him, because his priority is ensuring that people survive, not just the ones who might be electorally significant. Compare that to Republicans, and you'll understand just how full of it Dan Patrick is. Donald Trump, the leader of the Republican Party, got vaccinated in private. Greg Abbott, the governor who Dan Patrick himself serves under, has signed executive orders banning vaccine mandates. He banned state agencies from requiring proof of vaccination. He signed a bill restricting vaccine passports. Everything that Texas Republican leadership could have done to undermine vaccinations, they have. And then, of course, there's the fact that Dan Patrick, in this very clip, is appearing on Fox News. And this is Fox's stance when it comes to the vaccine.
How many Americans have died after taking the COVID vaccines? That's not Americans who've been killed by the virus. That's a huge number. It's how many Americans have died after getting the vaccines designed to prevent the virus. Do you know the answer to that question?
Is COVID-19. The origin is the top story, but the focus of this administration on vaccination is mind-boggling.
But you're right, the explosion of cases they've seen in the last few weeks has really been in the setting of getting to nearly fully vaccinated. It went up 5 to 10-fold, so it's almost as if the vaccine invited this explosion of cases.
Going door to door, this is creepy stuff. You know, someone comes up to your door outside wearing a mask, showing up at your house claiming to work for the government, asking you personal medical questions. The risks of vaccines to young children may be even worse than we thought.
Can HHS force you to take antibiotics for your TB? How about Xanax for your anxiety, Thorazine for your mania? And while we're at it, why are we letting irresponsible, defective people reproduce? Vagrants, mental patients, even QAnon people, all are allowed to have children. Why is that? Why aren't we sterilizing them? Sound crazy?
I think vaccination ought to be completely prohibited in anybody under age 30. That would simplify the picture greatly.
But sure, Republicans are totally on the side of vaccines. Got it. Patrick then there's the usual straw man by claiming that while Republicans purportedly support vaccination efforts, they're not going to force them on anyone. Now, I know that Republicans like to pretend that Democrats are chasing after people with needles in the streets, but what Democrats are actually endorsing is A, mandates in federal jobs where outbreaks would deliver a blow to our infrastructure, like the military or other government operations that can't afford to just stop. B, for states and localities to implement their own mandates in jobs where outbreaks would be devastating, like schools, which is exactly what we're seeing right now with the even more transmissible and dangerous Delta variant. And C, for businesses and private companies to implement vaccine requirements for customers and employees. Why? Because in a free market system, which don't forget Republicans are very big fans of, you are not entitled to shop somewhere. As long as businesses aren't discriminating against a protected class, which the unvaccinated are not, they don't owe you anything. So if you want to be able to, then you have to follow the rules set forth by those businesses, which were put in place to keep everyone safe. All of that is to say, no, Democrats are not forcing you to get vaccinated, but they sure as hell plan to make it very difficult for the unvaccinated to operate normally. And during a pandemic where 630,000 Americans have already died, it is long past time that these steps are being taken. The fact is that Republicans like Dan Patrick and the rest of Texas's leadership have had ample opportunity to prove through their actions that they not only support vaccinations, but that they value the lives of their constituents. They've shown neither, preferring instead to do exactly what Patrick is doing here and pandering to an increasingly radicalized, far-right national audience that takes its cues from people like Laura Ingraham. He's putting raising his national profile above the health and safety of Texans, and the growing number of cases, hospitalizations, and deaths in his state are proof of that. Because for these Republican officials, they're in power not to serve you, but to serve themselves. If you enjoyed that video and you're looking for a deeper dive, check out my podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen. It's a no BS look at the top stories of the week, along with interviews with the top names in politics, like Vice President Kamala Harris, Jen Psaki, Elizabeth Warren, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Katie Porter, Pete Buttigieg, and more. Again, that's No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, available anywhere you listen to podcasts. Also, if you want to see more videos like this one, click the subscribe link right here on this screen to join the more than 1 million people who've already subscribed to my channel. And finally, to donate to my Don't Be a Mitch Fund, where I'm raising money for a whole raft of different voter outreach and voter registration groups in the closest states ahead of midterms in 2022, including Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, North Carolina, and Texas. You can find that link on this screen as well. Thanks for watching.